So it's been a few weeks since the government announced their 95% mortgage scheme in the budget. In this video, we're going to go over some pros and some cons so that you can then maybe decide whether the scheme's right for you or not. Hi there, Lee Everett from Lee Everett Property Advice, and over the last 17 years I've dealt with thousands and thousands of property transactions. So if you're after the best tips and advice on how to buy and sell property, please hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and hit the bell notification as well. So we'll go with the pros first and foremost. And from what I can see, I'm no mortgage advisor. So if you do look to get a mortgage and you need to speak to a qualified mortgage advisor, I've got one that I can recommend. So email me on the email address below and I can put you in contact. But the first pro I can see is the obvious one, is you're not going to have to save as much deposit. So that's going to mean that if you were saving for a 10% deposit, that's half the amount of time it's going to take you to be able to have the right amount of deposit to get a mortgage, which can be years for some people. I think there was a study that said that the average first-time buyer has to save the majority of their wages for like 10 years to get the average deposit to be able to do it, which is nuts, absolutely nuts. Can I just say, look at this. I love a nice spring day by the sea. Fantastic. Anyway, I digress. The second pro that I can see is that this scheme is not just for new builds. It's for any property, new or old, which is going to open the market out for so many people. The equity loan, shared ownership schemes that have sort of been quite popular over the last few years, they've been for new builds only, and that's really only benefited builders sort of lining their pockets with money over the last sort of 6, 7, 8 years with those schemes. But this is going to mean that you haven't got to buy a potentially overpriced new build property. Well, the market at the moment, anything you're going to buy is relatively higher, but it can go to a second-hand home, one that's been built for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Any property is going to be good for this mortgage scheme. They're the two pros that I can see immediately, is that you're not going to have to save as much deposit, so you can hopefully buy a bit quicker. And the second one is you're not limited on the type of property or the age of the property like you have been on the equity loans, etc. Now on to the cons. Just because you can get a 95% mortgage doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to afford a bigger property. In fact, if your mortgage payments are higher, then you may find this affect your affordability. So you're still going to have to go through the affordability checks and all those sorts of bits and pieces to get a mortgage. But if you're having to pay a higher mortgage payment each month because you're getting a 95% mortgage, that might be factored into their affordability calculations and actually might reduce the amount you can actually borrow. So just bear that in mind. Again, speak to a mortgage advisor. The second one is you're going to be tied in for a 5-year fixed fee. Now you could see this as a potential pro, that you know your payments are going to be exactly the same for the next 5 years, but life has a habit and a way of throwing things, curveballs at you, which might mean you might want to sell, you might want to upsize if you have a family, or adopt, or I don't know, work from home all of a sudden, you need extra space. If you was to look to sell that property within those 5 years, you'd probably get stung an early repayment charge or a redemption fee for selling the house before that 5 years has come up. But again, you've got that pro of that, you know, your mortgage payments are going to be the same for 5 years. So that's sort of one which is on the fence. So the third con I can see is that your interest rates are going to be quite high. Although the Bank of England's base rate is pretty low, that hasn't really reflected too much in sort of the higher loan to value mortgage interest rates. From the one I've seen, I think it was 4.1% on a 95% mortgage. That's with the Yorkshire. That's not part of the government scheme, by the way. That's just a bank doing it on their own without the government scheme. But from next week, I think it's the 19th of April, these 95% schemes from the government are going to be available through your major high street banks. But yeah, if you're hoping for a low interest rate on these 95% mortgages, it just isn't going to happen. Another con would be the chance of actually being in negative equity. Now, as you're only putting a 5% deposit down, that could mean that if prices have a 5% swing downwards, you could find yourself owing more than what your property is worth. So if at the end of the 5 years property prices have gone down by, well, it have to be more than 5%, then you could find yourself, if you want to sell that property, you're not going to have any deposit left after you've sold it to put down for your next one. So I think if you are taking out these mortgages, you need to really think, if you're going to be there for the long haul, are you betting on property prices going up and then having more equity so you can remortgage for a better deal? But if the property market does go the other way and they start to come down somewhat over the next 3, 5, 6 years, then there is a chance that you could find yourself in negative equity. So really think hard as to how long you want to be in this property that you are going to be buying, and how you may get out of it, or can you stay there still if you do end up in negative equity. So again, I'm not a mortgage advisor. That's just my personal opinion on these mortgages. They're going to help a lot of people, and good luck to them. I really hope it does help you get your first property, or even a second property. You haven't got to be a first-time buyer to get these. Anyone can, as long as you're buying it as your main residential property. But yeah, hope it helps. Hope this video has shedded some light into what I feel. If you could give us a like, that'd be great. A subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.